victims and DA criticism. I'm Johnny D'Agostini from the KFI 24-hour newsroom. A trio of U.S. Marines from the Inland Empire are among the victims of a suicide bombing in Kabul. The explosion killed 13 service members, including Lance Corporal Kareem Nakui of Norco, Corporal Hunter Lopez of Riverside, and Lance Corporal Dylan Marola of Rancho Cucamonga. Here's the mayor of Norco, Kevin Bash.
We love those who are in service. This is Norco, man. We surround people. We will not forget Kareem. We will not forget him.
All three died in last Thursday's bombing outside the Kabul airport as American forces were trying to evacuate hundreds of Afghans. The ISIS-K terrorist group claimed responsibility for the attack. The search continues for a male suspect who sexually assaulted a woman as she was sleeping inside her Westwood apartment. The incident was first reported Friday morning in the 11,000 block of Strathmore Drive near UCLA. LAPD detective Brent Hopkins says the victim saw a man standing over her and he started groping her.
She was able to jump up, push him out of the room, and eventually out of the apartment. Then went back, alerted her roommates, who then called the police.
It's not known how the man gained entrance into the apartment. He's described as 25 to 30 years old, about 5'10" with a medium to heavy build. He has brown hair and short facial hair. Los Angeles County District Attorney George Gascon skipped Saron's parole hearing in California Friday. The man convicted of killing Senator Robert Kennedy in 1968. El Dorado County DA Vern Pearson says it's disrespectful.
Robert F. Kennedy was a visionary, and the LA County DA's office can't even bother to appear.
Pearson claims DA Gascon does not understand the responsibilities of being a prosecutor. Southland weather from KFI, some clouds today, low 70s at the beaches, low 80s in Metro LA, mid 90s in the Valley, and high 90s in the Inland Empire. It's 71 degrees in Anaheim, 67 in Simi Valley, 76 degrees in Van Nuys. Really local from the KFI 24-hour newsroom, I'm Johnny D'Agostini.
In Pomona, we have a work zone. This is on the 10 westbound from the 57 to Holt Avenue. Left lane's going to be off limits until 6. Watch for delays in that area. Burbank, this is on the 5 southbound at Verdugo. We have a little fender bender there. That's taking up the right lane. Your drive is bunching up as you approach this stretch. Sherman Oaks, we have a work zone. This is on the 101 southbound from the 405 to the 170. 2 left lanes are going to be shut down for road work until 5. KFI and the Sky helps get you there faster. I'm Brian Vance.
It's the word mattress stores can't stop shouting every Labor Day holiday. Sale! Sale!
Right, Dad, but what good is getting the lowest price on the wrong mattress?
So this Labor Day, come to Sit and Sleep, where our exclusive bed match technology scientifically matches you for just the right mattress.
Save 50% off select mattresses, and with your good credit, pay 0% financing for 36 months.
So this Labor Day, don't settle for a low price on the wrong mattress.
Trust your sleep to Sit and Sleep.
If you're self-employed and have been denied by traditional lenders, listen to me. Equinox Home Financing is the answer for the self-employed. You shouldn't be penalized for being an entrepreneur. Instead of using tax returns, they use personal or business bank statements for income. Conventional lenders cannot do this. Equinox Home Financing can get you qualified for the lowest rates available, and they do fast closing loans in less than 30 days. Call 1-855-LOAN-455. 1-855-LOAN-455. EquinoxHomeFinancing.com.
Licensed by the California Department of Real Estate and the California Department of Financial Oversight, NMLS number 1212805.
Contractor license 1047781.
Dad taught me to do things the right way, not the easy way. You got any brothers and sisters? 8 sisters, 7 of which are older than me. Did they teach you anything? They taught me that people matter a lot. I'm talking to Ken Goodrich, owner of Gettle Air Conditioning and Plumbing. The day I started my business, my first job was for a 90-year-old man whose air conditioner broke down on the hottest day of the year. And he didn't have any money to pay me. That's awkward. He was really embarrassed. So when he asked if I could take an old cello as payment, I told him I always wanted to learn to play the cello. The what? The cello. It's like a giant violin. You talking about the thing standing in the corner of your office? Yeah. I didn't know you could play that. I can't. Then why'd you take it? I took it because he would probably have died if I hadn't fixed his air conditioner. I took it because people matter. I like working here, Kenny. I like working here too, Zach. Gettle. Goettl. We'll keep you cool, but it's hard to spell.
KFI, AM 640, more stimulating talk.
From coast to coast and worldwide on the internet, this is Coast to Coast AM with Ian Punnett.
A little John Lennon action, and love that tune, whatever gets you through the night. In fact, you know, it's interesting how when we look at these stories that we think otherwise, you know, are somewhat recent. We think serial killers are something that we've monopolized into a kind of into a media that's on every platform, right? I mean, serial killer stories are everywhere, and some people look forward to every month becoming a new, you know, installment in this giant corpus on doesn't matter what digital platform or regular broadcast television or in a podcast or whatever. Think of all the serial killer podcasts that are out there. My favorite, Murder, is just one of them. And yet, in this one big giant sort of vein of history has gone relatively unexplored until Monsters and Monarchs, Debbie Felton's Serial Killers in Classical Myth and History. And by the way, too, she references Mindhunter in the book. We had on John Douglas, remember, on Coast to Coast when that book came out. And we talked to him. I very much enjoyed that conversation with John Douglas, and then that series that came out from David Fincher, which had 2 seasons, and everybody was waiting for the third. Maybe you heard that the announcement has been made that perhaps the 3rd season is underway, and it is a fictionalized version of part of that story in Mindhunter. Because I mean, I was so addicted to that because of how we also began to understand the psychology of serial killers while watching this fictionalized version of how the FBI came to terms with the psychology of serial killers. And we'll get back to all that coming up in just a minute on Coast to Coast. This is a subject which, you know, from time to time is something which George Norrie tackles as well. And if you haven't, you really should enjoy Beyond Belief. That's the digitally delivered and or cable delivered show that George Norrie does with Tom Danheiser in the back seat. Such a great show and so easy to find. Get more information on how you can get 1 month's free. What is 1 month free? I think it's 1 month free. $99, whatever. Go find it out for yourself. CoastToCoastAM.com and link up to Beyond Belief. And then after that initial trial period, it's still inexpensive and you'll enjoy it. On Coast to Coast AM, this is Ian Punnett.
If you haven't tried Super Beets Heart Chews, you're missing out. Super Beets Heart Chews are a delicious snack that you can take on the go and support your heart health. Super Beets Chews combine non-GMO beets with a powerful new ingredient, grapeseed extract. The grapeseed extract used in Super Beets Chews has been clinically shown to be 2 times as effective at supporting normal blood pressure as a healthy lifestyle alone. Better blood pressure means more energy the way nature intended without the jittery caffeine or stimulants. And now you can take just 2 delicious chews a day, anytime, anywhere, to get the blood pressure support you need and the energy you want. Do what I did and support your heart health with delicious Super Beets Chews. Get your Super Beets Chews today at NoriBeets.com. And when you buy 2 bags, they'll throw in the 3rd for free. That's NoriBeets.com to get a free bag of Super Beets Heart Chews when you purchase 2. NoriBeets.com. That's NoriBeets.com.
Through the Stand Up for Betsy Ross campaign, you changed the lives of dozens of hero families in need. The campaign benefited the Tunnel to Towers Foundation. Tunnel to Towers builds mortgage-free, smart homes for our nation's most catastrophically injured veterans and first responders, for Gold Star families and fallen first responder families with young children.
Tunnel to Towers pays off mortgages in full for these families and provides them with the comfort of a home. And thanks to this campaign, you have seen to it that we have been able to send a charitable donation in total of $5 million.
Your kindness, generosity, and patriotism brought hope when it was needed most. But more of America's heroes and their families need your support. Donate $11 a month to Tunnel to Towers at T2T.org. That's the letter T, the number 2, T.org.
Debbie Felton, Monsters and Monarchs. We were heading into the break at the bottom of the hour, and I kind of had to stop her there just because. And by the way, too, I'm not doing justice to this book. I'm trying to, but there's just so much material, and you did such a nice job focusing on this period, and kind of shifting our filters a little bit so that we see and hear these stories differently, and especially with regard to women and how many of them had committed crimes. What would you say is the motive for women to be serial killers? And just go with me on that definition. For women to be serial killers in the ancient world versus men.
Let's see, the motive. The motives seem to be a little similar, again, because we're dealing with the aristocracy. So power seems to be one of the main motives. Power and money are the two motives. Excuse me. So what you don't see that you might expect are stories about, say, jealousy and killing other women because your husband is being unfaithful with them or something along those lines.
Right.
So it's jostling for power, and if it's not power for yourself, as was often the case, it's power for your son, or someone, like usually a son very closely related, to make sure that the position or the money doesn't go to some other relative that is not your first choice. For example, sometimes you're sick of a husband or two, and you want to get rid of them and have a third option that'll get you a higher position of power or more in, a bigger estate, something along those lines.
Right.
So I'm not sure that the motives are all that different. One thing is that we just don't have a lot of information about the motives necessarily, so we're inferring quite a bit.
Let's go with that for a second, because there is this, as I think you're alluding to, this kind of trope that says, women kill men out, for revenge of having been, done wrong, so that women kill out of love, men kill out of sex. That in just these, fair or not fair, it's been said many times, and this was at least a prejudice that went into how people viewed women as revenge killers, ergo the poisons and things that were just sort of subtle reclamation of one's power. But you hit on something which is underscored, which is that in the ancient world, just like it is today, just like a woman that might be killing for the insurance money, is at the margins of having enough money to be able to get by into some sort of retirement where you didn't end up spending the rest of your life on the streets. We're pretty narrow in the ancient world. And so if it meant knocking off a few people so that you lived in comfort for the rest of your days, that might seem like a gamble worth taking for certain women.
Yeah, that certainly seems to be the case. Which isn't to say that there weren't also, serial killings for passion or revenge. Those tend to occur more in the mythology than in the historical accounts. Like Medea, for example, is someone I think we could call a serial killer. First she kills her brother, and then she kills her rival for Jason's affections, and then she kills her own children to spite Jason, and she continues to go, she kills Jason's rival for power. So Medea actually kills quite a lot of people in Greek myth.
I missed that Tyler Perry movie. I don't think I thought they were comedies. I never realized that.
Yeah, this is like the ongoing thing is I sometimes literally give spelling quizzes in my classes because the number of times I get Medea instead of Medea is pretty funny.
Yeah. So, but I think this is a good point. So, and I wonder to what degree that if we again go down into the lower classes, if that's the upper class thing, then lower classes what were they killing each other over if they had so little? And then I think, well, they were killing each other over so little. The difference was people killing each other over more or less, but they're still killing each other.
Yeah, and I mean, we just don't have we just don't have those accounts. I mean, it's not like I necessarily found every single story that might qualify as serial killing, so I'm sure there's still some stories out there to find, and maybe there are some stories about the lower classes, that I personally haven't uncovered yet, and somebody else will. But for right now, we just don't know. Again, we've got all these stories of women killing unwanted suitors, sometimes with the help of their family members. And I'm not talking about Odysseus necessarily this time, but there are other stories from myth where these princesses, have suitors one at a time rather than en masse, like in the case of Penelope. And, either their father, the king, doesn't want them to marry, or they themselves don't want to marry. So they put all these obstacles in the suitors' ways. And then it's like either you solve this riddle or you get killed, or you win this foot race or you get killed. So there's a weird sort of serial killer dynamic going on there in terms of winning the hand of the princess. Some very harsh penalties if you don't win. Yeah.
Right. But, that reminds me then, too, of, and I know this is a little bit outside of the scope of the book, but we never really talk about Henry VIII as a serial killer, right?
Well,
and
how many of his wives did he actually kill or have executed? Wasn't it just like one or two?
Well, but we never talk about it that way. We never say whether he didn't necessarily kill them, but he had them killed.
Yeah.
Oh, and I mean, if you're gonna, I remember once I was at a Renaissance fair somewhere, and somebody's walking around being Henry VIII with some big turkey leg, and I said, "Serial killer," and they're looking at me like, "You're ruining it. Like, this is what? What are you saying that?" But he was. I mean, why wouldn't we say he would be today? If we thought of it, that he hired people to do his bidding to kill his wives. Just like in the story, how many, in your book, I say story, in the book, how many times do prolific killers kill a series of wives?
Yeah. Yeah, there are, I would say yes with the Henry VIII, and that yes, there are a number of men who kill a series of wives, and it's the same idea as far as say Henry VIII goes. Sort of like some of the emperors, these are the monarchs that abuse their power. I mean, because with Henry VIII, that was trumped up charges for Anne Boleyn. I mean, she didn't produce a male heir. She was accused of being a witch. Various things. And then in antiquity, I'm not sure we see quite as many of those, but there are attempts to find these sort of Bluebeard figures in antiquity, or at least to speculate about them. But one of the examples that I like, which is a little later and isn't from classical antiquity per se, but the story of the 1,000 Nights and a Night, what we sometimes call by shorthand the Arabian Nights, where the king, because his first wife was unfaithful to him, he decides that he's going to get revenge for the embarrassment by marrying, a new maiden every day and then executing her until Scheherazade comes along and tells him a story that distracts him, and he wants to hear the rest of it, so he doesn't kill her yet. And this just goes on until she has borne him children. And he decides that he's just going to go ahead and keep her after all. But yeah, the killing of a series of wives for various reasons does show up.
And the same stories in some respects appear in the Bible. There's a lot. I got a tweet at Deacon Punnett, my Twitter handle, from somebody who says, "What about Samson? What about people who?" Although they may not have been a serial killer, certainly were mass killers.
Yeah. Samson, brought down the structure, right? Because he was being tortured and about to be killed himself. So is that the particular episode you're referring to? Where
No, because he killed people before that. I mean, and there's lots of stories of going on a rampage and killing innocent people. It's part of what built his reputation. It's part of what got him to where he was in the end. And I think this is where there's this sort of flex that if we're going to use the way the kids talk about it today. And so there was sort of this flex of power, and we see that kind of thing a lot, but it's almost as though, again, because somebody's a monarch or somebody was a judge, which had a different connotation in the original Hebrew, that somebody was a judge, that they were given this latitude to kill, just kind of kill people because they felt like it. It really comes right down to it.
Definitely abuse of power. I mean, there's no question. And I'm sorry, I haven't read the story of Samson since I was little, so I forgot all the details. But he's sort of he's a sort of a parallel to Heracles in a lot of ways in terms of being the strong man and having the problems with women.
Right. Yeah. How much of that, by the way, do we see a kind of psychosexual component to this exertion of power with regard to an inability to have a decent relationship with a woman, or maybe in the twofer, they've got a really kind of twisted relationship with mom, and therefore they have a very difficult relationship with women in their peer group?
Yeah, no, I think you're right. Those are definitely all interconnected. But I mean, it sort of depends if you're talking about the historical figures or the mythological heroes or both, because with the mythological heroes, part of the pattern for most of them is their inability to have a stable relationship, and it's not necessarily connected to mother issues. It's because of the nature of the hero. It's like pretty much the only ancient hero who had positive relationships with the women in his life was Perseus. He had a good relationship with his mom. He got married, and that worked out, and they pretty much lived happily ever after. But that's so rare for a hero in classical myth.
Yeah, and again, it sets up kind of that Norman Bates parallel too, which is, oh God, mother, no, which is one of my favorite lines in the movie, and I say it to my mom all the time, and but that idea of the mother existing in his own head, just so wrapped around his own head, that he couldn't have a normal relationship with a woman, even though he seemed to be dying to, right? Yeah. So what's our takeaway? Is we're heading into phones coming up, and we'll get lots of different questions, and I have no idea where we're going to go with this when we open up the phones in a minute. But what's your big takeaway from Monsters and Monarchs?
Well, sort of as you said at the very beginning, that it would be a mistake to think that serial killing is a mostly modern phenomenon, whether you start with Jack the Ripper or not. I mean, there's certainly cases in between antiquity and Jack the Ripper as well, like, medieval and early modern Germany, France, etc. But the tendency, at least when people first started studying serial killers in, say the 70s and 80s, studying them in more depth, was that the thought was that, it is the deprivations of modern society. It's the depraved lifestyle. I think deprivations was the wrong word. But it's the lifestyle. It's the fact that all of the inmates were released from various asylums because we can't fund them anymore. It's just so many problems with modern society lead to this, sudden flood of serial killers. And I mean, the one thing to definitely take away though is that serial killers, it's so very rare. Serial killing is so rare. You wouldn't know how rare just from the amount of attention it gets. I mean, serial killers, I don't really have a good statistic here, but I think it's like 1% of all killings are serial killings, or maybe less than that. Don't quote me on this, even though I'm like over the talk radio here. But they're so rare. But again, the amount of attention they get because they are so unusual, and just the details of them are so different from so many other killings. The methodology that goes into them, the ritual that goes into a lot of them, they get so much more attention. And also because it goes on for such a long time, and some of them are caught and some of them are never caught. The Zodiac killer's like, who was it? Right?
Right. So, well, although there's you heard the story about the guy in France who says he's cracked the code.
I know that there was a very recent cracking of one of the letters that hadn't been deciphered yet, because there was also one several years back by like a husband and wife team, and there was a more recent one. Is that the one that you mean?
Yeah, just last week, a Frenchman. There were two letters from the Zodiac Killer that hadn't been decoded, and he decoded both of them.
Oh.
And he's being shunned by the Zodiac Killer community because he's an outsider. He hasn't paid his dues. He hasn't been enough of these chat rooms. And when he blundered into these chat rooms saying, "Hey, I solved it," they just, they creamed him. But so far, he maintains that he's got it, and I'm looking to try to book him coming up on Coast to Coast. And it wasn't a month ago that we had on the author of a book that made a very strong argument that Jack the Ripper was actually Sir Arthur Conan Doyle.
Oh my God, that I haven't heard yet.
It's fascinating, and it makes perfect sense. Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, failed doctor. Before he wrote the Sherlock Holmes series, he loved to taunt the police. Sherlock Holmes taunts the police. I mean, there's just this list of things that bring him right into that, if not to the alleys of Whitechapel itself, certainly into unpacking the stories and revealing more about the murders than was publicly known. So how did he know that? I mean, it was a great show. It was. It was a great show. To speak to that, by the way, to Dennis, I think it was, Marty said that Henry VIII might have killed several wives, but at least he had a great theme song by Herman's Hermits. No, he didn't. That's a horrible song.
I don't remember the song.
I'm Henry VIII, I am Henry VIII, I am. Haven't you seen Ghost? And it's one of those awful, and I consider it a personal professional achievement that I got to tell Peter Noon of Herman's Hermits personally what a crappy song that was. It is such an awful song, and he knows it, but he made a lot of money on it. So, all right, very good. So we'll get to your questions and comments. Join in the conversation with Debbie Felton, Monsters and Monarchs. And I checked. So on George's Beyond Belief, I was kind of right. So it's one free episode and 99 cents for the first month. Take a look at it. Find out more at coasttocoastam.com. All right, we'll blow open the phones. We'll get you in the conversation next on Coast to Coast AM. This is Ian Punnett.
Would you exact on an 8 and 5-year-old who disobeyed you?
No more playing in the woods. They'll play in the house on an iPad. That's what they'll do. You want nature? No. You don't get any nature.
There's an app for that.
Gary and Shannon.
Yeah.
Weekdays at 10 a.m. on KFI.
Did you miss the Trump rally last weekend? Every major cable news channel refused to carry it except for Newsmax. Over 5 million Americans tuned into Newsmax to watch the rally. Newsmax is now the fastest growing cable news channel in America. The place for real news you can trust. Newsmax is on all the major cable systems. If your system doesn't carry it, call them. Tell them you want it. Newsmax also streams free on smart TVs like Samsung, LG, and on apps like Roku, Amazon Fire, Zumo, Pluto, and more. 7 million people have the Newsmax app on their smartphone. You'll love the Newsmax app. It takes seconds to download it on your phone, and there's no paywall or subscription. So here's what you do. You watch Newsmax for breaking news and find out why tens of millions of Americans are tuning into Newsmax TV and going to Newsmax.com for breaking news. Watch Newsmax TV today.
It's a great day at Mike Diamond Plumbing. How can I make you smile?
By getting my hot water back. My shower is spitting icicles.
I could get a smell good plumber out there today.
Awesome. How much does the house cost?
Are you a residential homeowner?
Yes.
Does your hot water heater have a tank or is it tankless?
It has a tank.
Then the house call is free during normal business hours.
But this is Saturday.
Not a problem. We're open 7 days a week.
Then by all means, send a smell good plumber my way. And thank you for being a real person. I keep getting Bubba's answering machine over at Stinky's Rooter.
We're We're live 24 hours a day, and your Smell Good Plumber will be there shortly.
I'm Mike Diamond, and I guarantee my plumbers will show up on time and smell good.
Or your water heater house call
is free.
Have a Smell Good Plumber diagnose your hot water heater for free today. Call 1-800-446-MIKE or check out the water heaters page at MikeDiamond.com. Contractor license number 399-170.
KFI News. We're on it. KFI and KOST HD2, Los Angeles, Orange County.
It's time for your morning wake-up call. And now, here's Jennifer Jones-Lee.
Hello, new week. Hello, Monday. And hello, you. How was your weekend? I must say, it felt so good. Saturday. Did a little college football. Little UCLA versus Hawaii. Honestly, the game sucked. It was such a blowout. It was 31-3 at the end of the first quarter. And I got a soft spot for Hawaii. When we would go to Hawaii often, we would go to the games just because there was something to do in Hawaii. It was something different, cool, and it was college football. Oh, but man, this Rainbow Warriors just got blown out. Congratulations to the Bruins. It was just great fun to be back doing some college football again. So, hot as heck, don't get me wrong. Nice and sunburned this morning from it, but well worth it. Hope you had a great weekend too. Hope you were able to get out of the heat a little bit because it was massive. I'll talk more about your forecast in just a few minutes, and relief is on the way, don't you worry. Here's what's just ahead on your wake-up call for this Monday. Rockets have been fired near the airport in Kabul. Remember, August 31st is the deadline for the U.S. to get out of Afghanistan, and looks like things are ramping up as we get closer to that time. Ida has been downgraded to a tropical storm as a hurricane, though. Knocked out power to all of New Orleans yesterday, and at 5:05, we'll talk with ABC's Jim Ryan about the latest on that. Also, when it comes to new cases of COVID-19 in L.A. County, apparently they are highest among the youngest. So that story straight ahead as well. And last night, if you missed it, between 8 and 10, LA County Sheriff Villanueva was actually on live and unscripted here on KFI. People were able to call in, ask a whole bunch of questions. So I've got a big chunk of a number of cuts that Steve Gregory left me from last night's interview with Sheriff Villanueva. And shouldn't even call it an interview. Like I said, he was live, unscripted. He was in the host chair. He took your calls, and I'll play a little bit of it, of what a lot of people had to ask him, and homelessness, a big focus on it, and he didn't hold back when it comes to pointing fingers at whose fault it is, so that's coming up. Let's start with some of these stories coming out of the KFI 24-hour newsroom. Rockets have been fired on the airport in Kabul less than 24 hours before the deadline to end evacuation flights and withdraw U.S. troops. ABC's Connor Finnegan says the attack has come soon after a U.S. drone strike on ISIS-K fighters.
The U.S. military killing 2 high-level ISIS fighters, according to the Pentagon, and injuring a third out in Nangarhar province, just east of Kabul.
No organization has claimed responsibility for the rockets. We'll go live to Jordana Miller with the latest. Ida is now a tropical storm, but it is smashing southeast Louisiana and Mississippi. It's knocked out power to about 1 million people, including the city of New Orleans. Former FEMA director Craig Fugate says there are dangers to be aware of even after the storm has passed.
Best thing people can do if you're safe, stay home, stay off the road, let the utility crews and the responders get things safe before you start going out to see how bad things were in the neighborhood.
And in fact, the governor of Louisiana has issued kind of a proclamation, I guess you could say, that if you didn't evacuate, if you didn't get out, stay home for at least 3 days, shelter in place. Now, at least 1 death so far has been blamed on Ida. Officials in New Orleans say flooding is a concern, and the chief administrative officer for infrastructure of the city, Ramsey Green, says torrential rain is in the forecast for today.
At times exceeding a rainfall rate of 3 inches per hour, which greatly exceeds our existing drainage ability. What that means is we would see flooding in this city
Ramsey says the city's levee system is very strong. So far, officials are confident the storm won't lead to any breaks like what happened during Hurricane Katrina. And I've been keeping an eye on this. And so far this morning, I've not seen anything. All I actually have seen is that the levees seem to be holding steady. So that's great news. All right, when we come back, we're going to talk with ABC's Jim Ryan about what's going on in Louisiana, and also I'll get you an update on COVID in California, LA County specifically, and follow up on the smoke and the brush fires that are happening, not just in Northern California, but down here in Southern California as well. So all that straight ahead. Right now, let's say good morning and happy Monday to Nick Pagliocchini, who's checking out the 91.
Good morning, Jenny. It's pretty much a very, very light delay with that as you're making your way westbound through the Corona area from the before the 71 as you make your way toward the 241 toll road. That's going to be light, patchy delay. Nothing too crazy going down for the drive. If you're encountering otherwise, though, you know what to do. Hands-free, of course, in the car, pound 250 on your cell phone. Keyword is KFI traffic. Again, pound 250 on your cell phone. Keyword is KFI traffic. Southbound side of the 241 as you come away from the 91 heading toward the Windy Ridge Toll Plaza, seeing a few delays for your drive there. As you're making your way northbound along the 101, coming away from the split with the 170, looks like that will be a little bit sluggish due to Caltrans crews wrapping up shop in the area. Leaving the 170 toward about Laurel Canyon, you may see a few delays on the southbound side of the 101 as well, off the 405 toward about Van Nuys Boulevard. KFI in the sky helps get you there faster. I'm Nick Pagliocchini.
5:06 on your wake-up call. Good morning, Jim Ryan. Give us the latest, would you please, on Hurricane Ida.
Well, the storm now is a tropical storm. It's not a hurricane anymore. The top winds that I saw a few minutes ago were 80 miles per hour. It's moved up toward the Mississippi line. It's kind of in the central part of Louisiana. If you think of the shape of the state, it's kind of an L, right? And so as the storm moves up the short lower leg of the thing, it's going to go up into Mississippi later today and then up into the Tennessee Valley. But all along the way, it's dumping a lot of rain. Storm surge was the major concern when it came in yesterday at landfall, and that's still the big concern. 12